Hello, and welcome to the Young Dad Conversation. My name is Ricardo Salcido, and joining me today is Mike Olivo.
How are
Mike,
you?
thank you so much for
Pleasure.
joining me. I am very excited to talk to you because you told me that you became a father when you were 17 years of age, and so of course, I have to know a lot more about that.
Sure.
But before we get started, tell me a little bit about yourself. Background, where did you grow up?
Okay, so background, born in the Bronx in Hunts Point. Um, we migrated to Club City, moved to Queens, went to middle school in Queens.
Mm-hmm.
And in 88, we moved to Jersey, Hudson County,
Mom and dad.
mom and dad.
Okay.
And so stepmom, dad didn't really get along too well. Started dating at 13.
You.
I did.
Yeah.
Parents and I didn't get along, so eventually ended up.
Was it the stepmother that was making things difficult?
No, more
or-
so, butting heads with dad,
Oh yeah.
becoming an adult, a young adult,
Okay.
questioning his authority and those types of things.
Were you the only child in the house?
Not at the time. I had a brother.
Hers?
Her,
Her
hers.
son.
He has passed away, and so pretty much single child at home. He
Oh.
was out of the house already,
Okay.
a little older.
All right.
Moved out.
Why do you think that you couldn't get along with your dad?
Um, Difference of opinions, really. They were very conservative in the way they were raising me,
Right.
and so old cultural background. Do as I say, not as I do.
Because he grew up in Puerto Rico.
He grew up in Puerto Rico, also in the Bronx. He came from a family of Jehovah's Witnesses, so they
that-
were very strict and conservative as
okay.
well.
So that's where that came from.
Correct.
All right. Okay. I was looking for that.
Yes. So the religion did play a factor,
Right.
and so in the 80s, we're getting into hip hop, branching out, meeting new people in Hudson County. I started meeting children that were also migrating over from New York City.
Yeah.
And so, there was issues with, gangs and, in Hudson County, there was Midtown Posse, there was Downtown Posse, and I was in my own little gang as well,
Yeah.
Growing up with, I guess the wrong crowd at the time.
Yeah. What was the name of your gang?
It was PIE, it was Posse in Effect, and,
Okay.
and
Are you still friends with those guys?
one of them,
Yeah.
I am still to
Yeah.
this day. He's grown up to be a successful guy as
Yeah.
well. Unfortunately, some of the others have not. They've
Right.
resorted to drugs or are in jail, things of that nature.
All right. So you're not getting along with your parents,
Mhm.
and you decide to do what about it?
Well, my dad was like, "Well, if you don't like the rules,
Right.
you need to get out," and so I
And
did.
you're 13 when he says this.
I was turning 13, going on 14.
Okay.
So I was a
tough.
runaway for about 4 years.
So you left the house, and then
left
you
the house.
started. I mean, how do you do it when you're that age, without
Well-
financial support from your parents and the love?
I had a lot of friends.
Okay.
PIE,
Right.
stayed with friends and family, worked, faked my birth certificate at 14, saying that I was an 18-year-old, and
Right.
I worked in a warehouse.
Okay.
Worked 3 jobs in a pizzeria.
Now
Wendy's.
you were in PIE, but you decided to get a legitimate job rather
Correct.
than because these guys were not criminals. It was just like a fun gang more than or
Well, I mean, there were things that we did that we weren't proud of, right?
okay.
But
I don't want to know what they were.
But I needed to support myself because I
Right.
was on my own.
Right.
So
And
you know,
and somehow, not somehow. I mean, obviously, I mean you had a good. You didn't get along with your father and your stepmother, but it was a good home life. So that
pretty much middle class family upbringing.
Right.
They were successful. My dad was a fire safety director for the Catholic high schools, and
Oh,
my
okay.
mom was a successful accountant.
And so this was the reason you really, I mean, rather than going into crime for your financials, you decided, no, well, of course I'm going to get a real
Right,
job.
right.
Okay, right.
Nobody else was supporting me, so I had to support myself.
Yeah.
And so I worked about 3 jobs, and eventually, I met my ex-wife, Lisa, and her and I got together.
Right. So you have you meet this girl at 17, or did you meet her before?
I met her when I initially moved to New Jersey.
Okay.
So we started dating when I was about 14.
You were dating when you were 14.
And it was a pretty serious relationship.
Yeah.
You know, everybody was hooking up back then, and it was all about the high school sweetheart. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And her parents didn't like me either. Hated me being around.
Were you? Do you think you were that bad? What?
In
did-
retrospect, yes.
Yeah?
Yes. You know,
You were bad.
I wouldn't want my child hanging out in the streets till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you know,
Okay.
sitting on,
Yeah.
you know, drinking, smoking, doing bad things, you know. So,
So this was your girlfriend. I mean, this was your girlfriend. I mean, were you messing around with other girls while you were with? Okay.
off and on, yeah.
Off and on. Okay.
Off and on.
And then so fast forward to, she tells you that she's pregnant.
Yeah, so 17, she's in high school. I'm still attending school as well.
Yeah.
And she becomes pregnant. And so, you know, the surprise of that forced me to realize that I needed to step up to the plate.
Oh yeah.
I had initially intended to go to the Navy and decided against that to be
Present.
be present for the child, yes.
Yeah. No kidding.
And
Well, for a guy that nobody likes, you're a pretty solid guy at that moment, you know.
yes and no. I
Okay.
didn't really know what I was getting myself into.
Right.
I just knew that I wasn't going to be a deadbeat dad. I wasn't going to walk
Okay.
away from that relationship.
And you had that from your dad's model.
Correct.
'Cause
My
he was around.
grandparents had always been together. You
Okay.
know, they've been together. They were together 25, 50 years.
Wow.
And so yeah, it was important for me to make sure I was in his life.
Right. So then, all right. So take us through that period, man. You find out she's pregnant. She's living at home with her parents.
Correct. Yeah.
They don't like you. Bad. You already have a job, which is good.
Right.
You're living on your own. Did you have your own apartment already?
No, I was still living with friends and
Okay.
family at the time. I kind of was like a gypsy, staying in one family's house to the next.
Couch
and,
surfer.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
And by the way, I insist that it takes brains to do that.
well, yeah. I mean, at the same time, I'm also making sure that the cops don't pick me up because I'm still a minor.
Oh.
So I'm always making sure that you know.
That's right. I forgot about that.
right. You know, my parents had an obligation to make sure that I was safe, and you know, if you're a runaway, they have to report you missing. So, so that was one of the reasons why I was always like hiding
that
out.
never occurred to me.
Right.
Okay. So then you find out, and what are you gonna do next? What do you do next?
So, eventually, her parents brought me into their home, and I lived in their basement for a while.
They brought you
And,
in. So when they saw their daughter pregnant, they needed to help her. They didn't have to like you. She liked you.
Mm-hmm.
They had to step in and do something. They couldn't
Right.
kick her out.
Right.
They weren't about to kick her out because she was
No.
a good girl.
She was.
Okay.
They came from a good Christian upbringing.
Okay.
Very religious as well. I actually, you know, went to church with them at one point.
Yeah.
And you know, they accepted me.
Yeah.
They accepted me into their family.
Yeah.
And seeing their family was, you know, it was different. You know, their
Yeah.
culture was different. The way they brought their family up.
Where were they from?
Also from Hudson County. They dad was originally from Hoboken.
Okay.
Mom was in Hudson County all her life.
All right.
They
Were they Puerto Rican, Hispanic?
dad was Puerto Rican. Her mom was Irish, Norwegian, and German, I believe.
Okay.
So
So then here you are. You're in the basement. Your girlfriend is still pregnant.
right.
Time's ticking. The baby's about to be born.
Right.
What is going through your mind? What is happening?
Well, it's really a shock to your system, you know, and eventually her and I broke up, and I ended up living someplace else.
How many months after the baby was born did you break up?
I would say a couple of months.
Just a
Couple of
It's
months.
all you
Yeah, it
could
wasn't
take.
long. It wasn't long. I wasn't ready at that age.
It's tough.
Yeah, mentally I wasn't really ready.
I wasn't ready to take care of a pet
Right.
at 17.
Financially, you're not ready.
Right.
You know, it's a huge expense.
So you think best alternative here is I run away from this.
Yeah, I mean that was my MO back then. You know, you know, face problems, you run away. And
Yeah.
so, you know, that was another huge mistake. You know, running away. But we made it work. She would bring the child over. She would bring my son over, and I would do my best to take care of him.
Okay.
Wasn't
Right.
the best at it.
So how long were you gone? How long were you out of contact for?
Well, I was in and out of my son's life, all his life pretty much.
Oh.
And yeah. We never really connected the way we were supposed to.
All right. All right.
So I learned the hard way. He was the first, so I made all the mistakes with him.
Yeah. Yeah. So where are you now with him?
I want to say that we're better.
Yeah. Wow.
We still have our issues.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'd like us to be closer someday.
Well, I know you because you were a volunteer soccer coach.
Correct.
That's how we met.
Right.
And I mean, you now. Okay. So fast forward to a couple of years, you became a man pretty quickly after that, I would imagine.
Yes. Well, you have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
And then you met another woman that you fell in love with, and
Correct.
you decided to have another more family.
Correct.
One the
I
real
have
thing.
5 children altogether now.
So you had 4 more kids.
So I had 2 children from my first marriage.
Oh, okay.
And 3 children in my second marriage, and they keep me very busy.
So girlfriend, first marriage, second marriage. So you had a second child with the
girlfriend who became my wife eventually. I didn't marry her.
Okay.
Yes, the marriage lasted about a year and a half, I want to say.
Wow.
And it was unfortunate. Again, too young.
Right.
Too young.
Yeah.
And so we split up.
Yeah.
Stayed in contact with the children, though. I've always supported them financially.
Right.
Visits were going to the football games, the baseball games that they played in, and eventually met my wife now.
Yeah.
And we had 3 beautiful children, and very involved.
I have
in their
2
lives.
kids, and I feel like I can't do more. Now, I would imagine you're going to say, well, when you have 3, you do more, and when you have 5, you do more. You just make it happen.
No, it's a struggle.
But
You're spread thin.
You do, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that one of the things that I struggle with the most is their personalities. You have to you're meeting people. You're
Mhm.
getting to know these people that are evolving every single second of
Right.
the day. They're changing so quickly.
Yes.
And so when I do that with 2, I'm thinking, wow, this is a lot of work. And then there's always somebody who's against you in what needs to be done, right? There's the routine.
Right.
If you have a like sort of, I don't know, like a normal life, there's a routine because we have to go to work. Mom and dad have to go to work, or at least dad has to go to work, and there's a routine that has to happen in the morning for the children to go to school too.
Right.
So when you have 2, it's and someone doesn't want to play along.
You manage the personalities, and you do your best. I mean,
Yeah.
some of them are a little bit more stubborn than the others, right? And
Right.
some of them get it, and they're like, okay, Dad, I'm right with you. And others are like, hey, I'm not getting out of bed today. I don't want to go to school, and you just got to be a little bit more.
I'm glad that you bring that up because you're right. I have one that is that he wants to be in his own time zone, and
Right.
the other one is like, hey man, I'm done. I'm ready to go. Right? I already washed my face, brushed my teeth.
Mhm.
I'm good to go.
Right.
So
Yeah,
you're
you
right.
got to raise them differently according to their personalities, their ability to learn. One can be slower than the other. So you have to have some patience. And
You have to have a lot of patience.
Yeah, definitely.
So now that you're a father,